ABC Kinderteach presents Gingerbread Baby, written by Jan Brett. It was cold outside. It was warm inside. A fine day for gingerbread, Maddie thought. That's Maddie. Maddie's mother put the big blue bowl on the table. There it is. And lit the stove. Maddie took down a worn-looking cookbook, right there, with old-fashioned writing on the cover. He opened it up to the page that said, Gingerbread Boy. How to make gingerbread boys. That sounds tasty. They measured and mixed. Maddie rolled the dough into the shape of a gingerbread boy, and they popped him in the oven. Why is this story called Gingerbread Baby if they're making gingerbread boys? Bake a full 8 minutes, no more, no less. Do not peek, the recipe read. I wonder why it has to be exactly 8 minutes and that you can't peek. Maddie listened to the clock. Tick, tock, tick. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3, 4, 5. Maddie couldn't wait any longer. He opened the oven door to take a peek. Oh no, he was supposed to wait 8 minutes. Instead of a gingerbread boy, out jumped a gingerbread baby. Oh, because it wasn't cooked long enough, so it changed from a boy to a baby because it was only cooked for 5 minutes and not 8. He pranced, moved by lifting his legs high, around the big blue bowl. I am the gingerbread baby, fresh from the pan. If you want me, catch me if you can. Boy, I don't know if I could catch him. He looks pretty fast. Maddie's mother reached for the gingerbread baby to put him back into the oven, but he ran all around the kitchen. The door opened and in came Maddie's father. What's that delicious smell? He asked as the gingerbread baby tumbled through his legs, kind of went through his legs, and outside into the yard. Uh-oh, there he is out in the yard. The cat seems to be interested. And look at, he broke their bowl. He ran by the tabby cat. She twitched her tail, moved it back and forth quickly, and sprang at him. They rumbled and tumbled, which means they kind of fought with each other. But the gingerbread baby came out on top, which means he's riding the cat. He ran toward the garden wall. The dog caught a whiff of tasty ginger, because ginger goes into gingerbread cookies, and sniffed along behind him. But the gingerbread baby was halfway up when the dog caught up. He barked and barked as the gingerbread baby climbed over the wall. Oh, so he got away from the cat, and now he got away from the dog. Of course, he got away from the mom and the dad, too. I wonder how the rooster didn't catch him. Maddie was still inside. I wonder why. He heard his mother and father yelling. He heard a cat meowing and a dog barking. And he heard the gingerbread baby shouting, Catch me if you can. Maddie opened up the worn-looking cookbook for the second time. I wonder what he hopes to find in the cookbook. Maybe a way to catch the gingerbread baby? Meanwhile, the gingerbread baby wheeled on down the path and into the barn. The goats looked up as he somersaulted, which means he flipped over, across their backs. The last one tried to catch him, but the gingerbread baby was too fast. So now The goats are trying to get him, but he's still too fast. How is anybody going to catch him? Martha and Madeline were standing by the well when the gingerbread baby stopped to take a drink. They looked at each other and winked. Martha started to talk to him. There's Martha talking to him, while Madeline, right there, tiptoed up behind him with the bucket. They're going to try to catch him in the bucket. But they couldn't fool that gingerbread baby. How does the gingerbread baby get away? He took a braid from Martha and a braid from Madeline and tied them in a knot and ran down the road. So he tied their two braids together. Boy, he's kind of a little bit of a troublemaker. Back in the house, Maddie stirred, mixed, and rolled the dough. What's he doing? He's making another gingerbread person, maybe? He shaped it, put it in a pan, and into the oven. Tick-tock, tick. 8 long minutes. This time he didn't peek. I will catch him if I can, Maddie said to himself. This does not look like a gingerbread person, does it? It looks more like a building or a house, like the sides of a house. As he was bouncing along, the gingerbread baby saw a farm wagon just ahead. He jumped in and settled down for the ride next to a mama pig. I bet the pig's going to want to eat him. The smell of gingerbread was too much for her. She tossed him high in the air, closed her eyes, and opened her mouth. But the gingerbread baby twisted in the air and came down hard on her porky snout right there. I am the gingerbread baby, too quick for the mother and the father, too fast for the cat, the dog, the goat, too clever for Martha and Madeline, too smart for the mama pig. Who's left? Catch me if you can. Who is left? Feeling smug, or feeling good about himself, the gingerbread baby walked without being in a hurry, along by himself until he came to a bridge that crossed over to the village or the small town. Just as he got to the middle, he heard running feet behind him and saw a crowd of visitors ahead of him. The gingerbread baby was trapped. He jumped up onto the railing, backflipped through the air, and landed on a chunk of ice floating down the river. So people were coming from this way and people were coming from this way, so he jumped off the bridge and landed on a piece of ice and is floating down the river now. And Maddie is still working. It looks like he's putting some sort of house together. The ice bobbed, went up and down in the water, along with the gingerbread baby, dancing on top and singing in a loud voice, Look at me, and what do you say? The best gingerbread baby ever. Until his feet got cold and he jumped ashore. So there he is floating down the river and his feet are getting cold, so he's going to jump out of the water. Who was that watching from the trees? It was the fox. He crept up behind the gingerbread baby, ready to eat him up. But the fox couldn't help himself, and he licked his chops or lips. Smack, smack! The gingerbread baby heard him and ran as fast as he could. Is the fox going to catch him? Just when the fox was catching up, the gingerbread baby saw the milk and cheese man with his can of milk. There's his can of milk right there. The perfect hiding place, he thought. He lifted the lid and lowered himself inside. He was so pleased that he sang at the top of his gingerbread voice, Ah, ah, hee, hee, you'll never find me. I'm the gingerbread baby. Catch me if you can. The milk and cheese man heard the gingerbread baby's voice. always meddling with my milk," he shouted and lifted the lid. And meddling just means doing something they shouldn't do. But the gingerbread baby was ready. He jumped up and tweaked his nose, or twisted or pulled it hard. Boy, right there. And there is Maddie making a gingerbread house. What's he going to do with this house? Now, the milk and cheese man, the fox, the villagers, the mama pig, Martha and Madeline, the bleeding goats are making the bad noises, the barking dog, the meowing cat, the father and the mother were all after the gingerbread baby and getting closer, and he knew it. The brash, which means rude, noisy, and sure of himself, baby was not as peppy, was running out of energy, was getting tired, and proud as he had been. He sniffed a familiar smell, a smell that he had smelled before, and followed his nose into the woods. So what kind of smell is he smelling, and how does this have to do with Maddie and the gingerbread house? I guess we'll have to wait and see. There's the gingerbread house that Maddie made. There's Maddie hiding behind the tree. What's going to happen? He couldn't believe what he saw. There, in the middle of a clearing, a place in a forest without trees, was a gingerbread house, frosted with sugar, covered with candy, and doors with peppermint handles wide open. The gingerbread baby clapped his hands with glee or happiness and ran inside. I think Maddie has caught him. In a tick-tock-tick, everyone arrived in the clearing, but all they found were a few bits of frosting, a peppermint candy, and some crumbs. So Maddie took the gingerbread baby and the gingerbread house with him. The father exclaimed, "The gingerbread baby has finally met his match." "I wonder who it was," the mother said. "Let's go home and tell Maddie." "Hello, Maddie," his father said when they got home. "We never did catch that gingerbread baby. All we found were some crumbs in the snow." "I see you have been busy," his mother said, looking at the gingerbread house Maddie was holding. "Too bad we never caught that gingerbread baby." "Too bad," said Maddie, but he had caught the gingerbread baby, didn't he? Only Maddie could hear the tiny voice from inside the gingerbread house. Do you think the gingerbread baby is upset or not? Let's see. "I'm the little gingerbread baby, lucky as can be to be living in the house that Maddie made for me." So he is happy about being in the house.